Are you a 3PL spending more time and money than you'd like recruiting and onboarding logistics roles? Then it's time to check out Rapido Solutions Group, the leaders in nearshore logistics staffing. Located right next door in Mexico, they have access to the freight talent you need. From carrier sales to tracking and tracing and everything in between, they can do the heavy lifting for you. So if you're ready to get your time back and want to move fast, check out Rapido Solutions Group. Visit gorapido.com to get started today. Have you heard about Bitfreighter and the EDI revolution? Bitfreighter helps companies automate communication with their freight partners through unlimited messaging and quoting. Traditional providers can't say that. The Bitfreighter team is also available 24/7 and responds immediately by phone, email, or yes, even text. Legacy providers can't say that either. So if you want to scale your operations to save time and money, come join the EDI revolution with us. Visit bitfreighter.com to get started today. Hello, and welcome to the Bootstrapper's Guide to Logistics, the podcast highlighting founders doing it the way that doesn't get a lot of attention. We're here to change that by sharing their stories and inspiring others to take the leap.
It's a roller coaster ride. You might ultimately fail.
That's when I kind of knew I was onto something.
It was very hard.
It truly is building a legacy.
The more life you live, the more wisdom you have.
Because we are where we're supposed to be, kind of answering the call.
Don't shoulder entrepreneurship on your own.
I'm your host, Nate Schutz. Let's build something together from the ground up. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the show. We are wrapping up 2023 here with the last episode of the year. Also, one of the first episodes that the Bootstrapper's Guide to Logistics is adding video, which is an interesting challenge, learning new technologies all the time and new editing techniques and different things that it takes to share more founder stories with a broader audience. And that's what we're all about here at the Bootstrapper's Guide to Logistics, is spreading the word about companies and founders that are doing it the way that doesn't get a lot of attention. And bootstrapping is very, very old-fashioned. And that's part of why I find it so appealing and why I'm always on the hunt for people who have started interesting companies with limited resources. And so this week we're going to talk with Mark Vickers, who started a cross-border insurance product company called Borderless Coverage. Good morning, Mark. Can you explain a little bit more about what niche did you see didn't have a solution and that you felt like you were equipped to be the one to go solve that problem?
Sure. Well, good morning, Nate. Thanks for having me. I'm a huge fan of your show. I love what you're doing. I listened to several episodes, and I just think it's great content. But what Borderless Coverage is in its most simplistic form is all-risk cargo insurance in Mexico, something that didn't used to exist even 8 or 9 years ago. And we've automated the process for obtaining this coverage. And it's something that all of the top logistics companies and motor carriers now kind of have in their as a quiver in their risk management, cross-border risk management program.
So as you look at the massive rise of nearshoring that's going on right now and the tailwinds that Mexico has, how were you early to that game?
It's 100% luck. So I needed this product so you might think of me as an insurance guy because I started an insurance company, but I describe myself as a logistics person, a logistics expert that got into the cross-border space. And my shippers asked me for two things. They asked me for real-time shipment tracking for cross-border shipments in Mexico, and they asked me for all-risk cargo insurance in Mexico. And I really couldn't answer either one of those 10, 12 years ago. So started using MacroPoint quite a bit for cross-border shipment tracking, and while the freight was in Mexico, worked quite well. And then I really couldn't find a solution for cargo insurance in Mexico. So I spent a few years figuring it out and put it together, called it Borderless Coverage, and scaled it. And that's the huge need. So nearshoring was not a thought in my mind when I put this together. COVID didn't exist before we formulated this concept called Borderless Coverage. It is certainly something that has helped helped us scale this thing like wildfire, though.
Well, and you've had a successful run, and now you've exited and you have a job again. What has the transition from employee to founder to exited founder to now working at a larger company? That's a lot of change.
So I think throughout this discussion, I'll refer back to probably a number of mentors that I had in my life. And a lot of these guys were really scrappy business owners in the Cleveland area who were doctors, lawyers, bankers who had side jobs that were pretty scrappy jobs. And they'd make more on these side jobs and would sell these side jobs while still working their full time deal. So I went to a lot of these guys with asking for advice in this scenario because I was really excited about what I was doing at Borderless Coverage. I was scaling it well myself, but I was having like things were picking up. Like some of the big 10 names in trucking and in brokerage were our clients, and I needed to do a better job in the back office and servicing them from an accounting standpoint. And I just didn't want to do that work. So that was one of the reasons why I was willing to sell, which is not the best reason to sell at all. But I met a guy named Tom Albrecht. Tom was the CFO of Celadon, which he closed. Celadon closed their doors, and Celadon's Mexican entity was Jaguar, and Jaguar was using my Borderless Coverage product for Mexican cargo insurance. Tom was speaking at an event in Columbus. I literally cornered him and cold called him pretty much about our product. And then a year later, he was working at a company called Reliance Partners. Reliance Partners is the largest transportation logistics insurance agency in the United States. Tom gave me a call. He said, "Hey, Mark, we like what you're doing. Would you mind sharing some more information about who your clients are, what your revenue looks like?" And at that moment, I was like, I don't want to share this information.
Sure.
So I went back to my mentors and I talked to them about, hey, what talk to me about how you've done acquisitions successfully. And I got some awesome advice from these guys. What they told me, what my father told me, who's a construction and civil litigation and transportation attorney in Cleveland, they told me to just put all your cards on the table, be 100% honest about where your business is right now, and then on a separate page, tell them about where you see it going. So what I told them is, these are my exact clients. This is the exact revenue that I'm seeing from these clients. This is the premium that's associated with these clients, and this is what you're getting. Which at the time was, hey, it's a significant amount, but probably not what they were expecting. And I was like, as a salesperson by nature, I'd usually prop everything up, make it look beautiful. And I did the opposite in this circumstance. I told them, this is where I'm at. This is what the nearshoring wave looks like. This is what I think this could happen. And these are the deals I've got in the pipeline. And this is all you're getting right now. And you're getting me. And that ended up being something that worked out really well, and something I would tell anyone that's selling their company to do is be 100% honest. Because when you go on board at another company, they're going to feel like, hey, we're working with an honest person and we're going to let them do whatever they want. And sorry if Reliance is listening to this, but they really let me do anything that I feel is adding value to their client base, to new client base. I'm allowed to create new revenue streams, so I can still act as an entrepreneur within an organization. I guess it's called like an intrapreneur.
Sure.
So I'm able to really attack aggressive markets. I can travel wherever I want.
Yeah, you've got resources now that you couldn't have done on your own.
You got it. So it's been a match made in heaven. I'm really, really happy.
It sounds like you have a well-rounded group of people in your life. I know you shared a picture recently on LinkedIn of a lunch or a breakfast meeting with a handful of gentlemen that all looked, I'll say, a few decades your senior. And there's something to be said for following in the footsteps of people who have been there and done that, but it doesn't seem to be as popular as it once was. Like, people have this, I have to go it alone. I don't want to ask for help, or I don't want to listen to anybody else. And yet there's a wealth of knowledge and experience that you can tap into. How do you balance like listening to their advice and being humble that way, along with needing to be, pretty confident in your own abilities if you're going to be an entrepreneur?
hmm So I kind of take a couple different ways of tackling my answer to that. So, I mean, going back to my childhood, I always was starting scrappy businesses. I mean, you know those addresses that are painted on the street curbs. That
Oh,
that
sure.
was one of
Yeah.
my first jobs, is driving around in my truck with a friend of mine and spray painting those street addresses. And we make $100 an hour on the weekends doing that, while I was working at a boxing factory and working at an Applebee's, which is another glamorous job. But the owner of that boxing factory that I worked at was one of the guys in that picture, and he was a banker. And when he was a banker, he knew that he wanted to start his own business. So he saved up a bunch of money and started a boxing factory on the side. And then that became his main job. And I worked for him. And guys like that, who were my father's friends growing up, really helped me get different perspectives on things that I wanted to do. So I was scrappy by nature. I always knew that even before high school that I was going to start my own business one day. And going to people that have been there and done it before, that were able to kind of just pour wisdom into me. I wouldn't always agree with them, but getting different perspectives and being told I'm wrong by people that have done it before really helped me formulate strategies better.
How would you say that you've matured or changed then throughout those years?
I guess there you stick with it longer over the years. Right off the bat, if I was told no, I would just, maybe this isn't the best opportunity. But after being in logistics for a long time and seeing some of the pain points that other people didn't see, like for example, for cross border, when you're working in the cross border business and you're working with asset based motor carriers in, say, Laredo, Texas, and Nuevo Laredo, those groups have been handed these trucking companies down from their fathers.
Mm.
So they're used to a certain way of doing business, and they don't want to get out of their comfort zone. They don't want to change anything. They're not huge into technology. So when I went down to Laredo, Texas for the first time to kind of get feedback on this idea of borderless coverage, I was told no nonstop. I was told, this is just not the way you do business, Mark. You're wrong. Go back to Cleveland, Ohio. And, over the years, if I was to start this business before I got into the logistics industry, probably wouldn't have worked out. But because I was in the logistics industry and because I was used to being told no a lot of those no's end up, you know, kind of justifying that my business idea that, hey, this is going to be hard, but once I push through this, I'm going to see some success, and I'm not going to have any competitors because no one else is willing to go to these lengths that I'm willing to go through. So I would say over the years, I've gotten wisdom on work ethic and just sticking with it.
You do seem to have an intensity of purpose almost that I can detect now. If somebody were to tell you no, it would almost be a source of motivation, like a chip on your shoulder, maybe.
Yeah, that's I'm from Cleveland. I mean, that's just how people are. Nobody's giving everything. You got to earn it. When I started the TQL Nashville office. It was an awesome thing to be a part of. I kind of started my career in logistics at TQL. I think it was an awesome thing for me. And to be able to start an office on Broadway in Nashville was really fun. One of the shirts that we had was "Just Earn It," and nothing's going to be given to you in the logistics space, and you're just going to have to earn it every single day. That's how it is.
I've been on Broadway Street in Nashville. I don't know how you got any work done.
I hired about 80 to 100 logistics people that were fresh out of college, and it was a good time. Great part of life. Also glad I am in a different space now.
Say more.
Yeah, I think I'm good with that. But Broadway is a blast. I now like country music. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. So what do you think happens, 5 years from now? Do you have ideas from time to time on what the next thing is that you could build, or do you pursue cross-border insurance products in the lane that you're in right now and say this is the absolute best place for me? Or are you constantly tinkering in your mind with options?
Yeah, so I'd say that cross-border in general is the most underserviced slot in the supply chain universe right now. And there are very few educated and efficient supply chain people that are spending time to create products for that swim lane. And there's some good stuff coming out right now. Their TMSs are really starting to speak Spanish. You're going to start seeing like the DATs of Mexico start to pop up. There's different financing options. I think there's some really cool stuff. But in all honesty, this took me 10, 12 years to build this cross-border cargo insurance product. We just automated it 4 years ago. We're just scratching the surface on the market share. And just now we're starting to get some serious raving fans from the largest logistics companies and asset-based motor carriers, where we are not prospecting. We're not even really marketing this product. It's just people need it and they're coming to us. And I really, growing up at TQL, it's straight up cold calling. And and that's how I had to start this borderless coverage business. I found where the head of NAFTA was speaking in Laredo, Texas. So while I was working full time, I jumped on a plane on my own dime, went down to Laredo. I cornered him. Like, I guess I did that to Tom Albrecht too. And I guess that's kind of a thing that I do. Actually, I read a book called Living with a Seal. And there's a guy named Jesse Itzler that wrote that book. Jesse Itzler was married to Sarah Blakely that started Spanx. He owns Water. And one of the things that he said in his book is that he just liked to cold call famous people and ask them to be their friends. And that's basically what I did in this circumstance. Was I hopped on a plane. I met the head of NAFTA. I took him to dinner. I told him all about this borderless coverage concept. This is 10 years ago. And he loved it. So the next step was he flew me from Laredo to Mexico City. And then I got to meet the chief negotiator of USMCA on behalf of Mexico and meet the Ministry of Insurance and the Ministry of Transportation in Mexico. And, without taking that bold move of kind of asking these people to be my friends and telling them about my ideas, none of this would have really happened, or it certainly wouldn't have scaled the way it has. So I pretty much forget your initial question now.
No, I'm fascinated with this concept of just cold calling and seeing what's behind door number 2, because you don't know. You might have the most brilliant business plan in the world, but if you don't have the relationships or the network or resources to enact that vision, it will stay on paper forever. Mm-hmm. Whereas, dropping $500 on a flight and a couple $100 on a hotel room in a room of complete strangers, that takes guts. And that's how interesting things end up emerging, because you don't know what happens after that.
I loved it though. And these initial people that I met so I was told no by probably 100 different trucking companies in Laredo before this really took off. But not until I met the chief negotiator of USMCA, who's a partner of mine now and a good friend, his name's Kenneth Smith Ramos, did I really start to feel like I had credibility around this program. He's like, this is something our country needs.
Mm.
And when that happened and nearshoring happened, I got lucky. It kind of made my own luck, but I got lucky with some geopolitical events that happened where everything came together. And my initial clients were some of the biggest cross-border logistics service providers in the world. And these groups were the ones they're these people, these good guys that became new mentors for me. So I mentioned that I had early mentors in my life. These people that I cold called to be my friends are now my mentors. One of them started Transplace Mexico. One of them started Redwood Mexico. These are good guys that make bold business moves that have really gone out of their way to kind of propel my career and my ideas. And they, of course, have won significant business
Sure.
by using my product too. And I'll lean on these guys when we're doing kind of cross-border business consulting projects and helping large freight brokerages expand their footprint into Mexico and stuff like that. So, I mean, there's a lot of different tentacles of other businesses that can arise from borderless coverage. But my core focus for at least the next 3 to 5 years is just going to be making this product better and making it more accessible for people that actually understand cross-border and actually understand the risk. And honestly, most groups don't understand the risk, and most shippers don't understand what they're getting for cargo insurance in Mexico. Most shippers think that they either are insured or that their global policy or their self-insurance program covers them in Mexico. But in reality, they either don't have insurance or they've got a deductible of about $100,000. And if
And
they're
they're just
deductible,
waiting for a bad event to happen to learn that lesson.
yeah,
And that's where the global nature of our industry gets really personally fascinating to me, that you can spend 20 or 30 years learning a small segment of the industry. Maybe it's truckload, maybe it's small parcel, you name it. But the subject matter is so large that every country operates differently. You could take the same mode and in a different country. LTL in Europe is called groupage. It's kind of the same thing, but it's not exactly the same thing. And
mhm.
that endless opportunity for discovery of knowledge and learning new norms and cultures and building those relationships is a fun way to spend a few decades of our lives professionally. I'm
Yeah.
curious. You've got a plan now. You have a path, I should say, professionally that should take you forward for the next 5, 10, 15 years. Outside of work, what are the things that motivate you or that you focus on or that you're excited about?
I mean, I hate it when people ask me, "Hey, so what do you do?" When I meet them for the first, and I've always been like, "Oh, I want to tell them about my business," but I was like, "Hold back, don't talk about business." And I've gotten better at that. And to be 100% honest, I care more about being a kindergarten football coach for my son because he's got good hands. I care more about that than I do with business, and I'm trying to figure out how to balance it better because everybody in logistics works nonstop.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I started my business by being at this library that I'm at right now. I'd come in to work. I'd come in here for an hour before work. I'd be in here an hour after I got back from work and on the weekends. But I've done that hard work already, and
Mhm.
I want to spend more time with my family. And a good friend of mine, we actually started a fraternity together at Ohio State. Jim Tressel actually was a member of this fraternity, and he urged us to start this at Ohio State. And this guy started a group called Beyond the Game. He's also one of the offensive coordinators for Ohio State's football team right now. And what Beyond the Game is it's going into inner cities where some of these boys in third grade do not have a father figure in their life. And it's an 8-lesson curriculum that he put together, and that he's got 30 different schools now, and we just go in and we teach these boys about just general life etiquette, how to hold the door for a girl, how to shake a hand, what a business conversation could look like. And I had no idea that that just wasn't being taught. And what we found is that this school that we're sponsoring, they didn't even have a teacher at the school that would be willing to to teach these lessons. So I've actually got to teach these lessons for the first time. I've never done that in my life. I thought I was just going to be a guest speaker, but these are the things that are really motivating me. I'm motivated to have, I don't really care about the life work balance. I feel like work is something that enables me to provide. It's something that it enables me to give back, and I want my kids to know that their dad worked their butt off and wasn't given everything, and I don't want to give them everything. So I'm bringing my son to these beyond the game lessons so he can meet some of these kids that don't get new football cleats every single year. And those are a couple of things that I'm doing outside of work that are important to my family and I.
Well, it sounds like you're having an industry impact for sure in the segment that you play in, and it sounds like you're having a community impact as well. Before we wrap up, I always like to ask questions around the people that have impacted you the most, or that you would offer gratitude towards, because you've benefited from others' investment in you throughout your life. So as you look at the stable of people around you, who would you like to say thank you to?
Yeah, I'd probably want to start with my basic blocking and tacklers, and not everyone in this world is fortunate enough to have two great parents.
Hmm.
And my dad, I mentioned him before. He's really instilled in me some significant work ethic and ability to stick with things when people tell you no, and that really came from him telling me to stick with football when I wanted to quit my freshman year when I was a shrimp getting plowed on the field. And separate from my dad, my mom really instilled in me some Christian values.
Hmm.
And to be 100% honest with you and your audience, I pretty much lost those values while I was in college and right when I was after college. I was an absolute wild man, and I wanted to be the wolf of Wall Street, and I thought that was cool. And I think because my mom and spent a lot of time in instilling those Christian values, it's something that I came back to.
Hmm.
And now I'm able to be involved with their church, or get to send my kids to a certain school. And without her, I could be totally lost.
Hmm.
So with those two people, and with the support of my wife, and with some mentors that I've continually to get new ones, and then continue to have relationships with my old ones, without them, I definitely feel like I'd be lost. So it's good to have a good support system, no matter how well you're doing in life, because things can be stripped from you pretty quick.
It's a great note to not only end the episode on, but to end the year on, Mark. So I'd like to offer some gratitude also. Then this journey that we've been on with this simple little podcast has taken me around the country. It's taken me around the world. I have met literally hundreds of founders in our industry. I have gotten to spend time one on one with people who are in the highest highs of owning and running a business, and I also take a lot of phone calls from people who are at their lowest lows. And it's been a tough year for the industry and for a lot of business owners. And yet it's been really gratifying to get to see a community of people support each other. And it doesn't always make it onto social media. It doesn't make it into a show or anything like that. But it's real, and there is a network of people out there that want to do business well and do it the right way, and lift each other up. And in doing that, it does extend beyond the game or beyond the industry, where people's lives are actually being impacted, and they're getting the help that they need to make it through a difficult time and know that they're not alone. And so I would just like to thank every single entrepreneur and founder that has come across my path this year, along with all of the folks that listen. This show doesn't, if we don't have an audience, we don't have people to listen to the stories that are being shared. And so I just want to say thank you to each and every person that has been a part of this journey so far. We're so glad you're here, and we can't wait to share more of what's going to happen for us in 2024. Mark, thank you for sharing your story and for opening up, and just know that we're all rooting for you.
Thanks, Nate. Thanks for being a friend.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Bootstrapper's Guide to Logistics, and a special thank you to our sponsors and the team behind the scenes who make it all possible. Be sure to like, follow, or subscribe to the podcast to get the latest updates. To learn more about the show and connect with the growing community of entrepreneurs, visit logisticsfounders.com. And of course, thank you to all the founders who trust us to share their stories.